Today we're going to look at Greek nouns. Just like in English, there are singular and plurals, but where it differs is that there are genders and articles. So let's have a look at Greek nouns. But what is a noun? A noun is a person, place, or thing. A name can be something like Max, Mary, or it can even be a name of a brand, such as Mentos. A place, Adelaide, Athens, Aradipo, these are all nouns. And a thing or an object, a chair, a couch, colour. Colour as the noun and not the adjective. So we're not talking about a colour, but we're talking about the noun of colour. So there are three genders of Greek nouns. We have masculine, feminine, and neuter. These nouns are always preceded by an article. So the article for the masculine noun in the singular is o, using the omicron, I using the ita, and do for neuter. And in the plural we have I, ita for masculine, feminine, and neuter respectively. But the thing we must remember are the three genders of Greek nouns: masculine, feminine, and neuter. Greek nouns become difficult, however, because just because we're using the word boy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be a masculine noun. So we have to look at the endings, and it doesn't really make much sense at all. So the wall is masculine, or dijos. The door is feminine, I porta, and the floor is neuter, to patoma. But how do we know what gender a noun has? Well, that's quite easy. It's through the endings of the nouns. So masculine nouns will generally end in a sigma. So we've got os, as, is, es, and us. So words such as o cosmos, o pateras, o pelatis, o cafés, o papus. These are all masculine nouns. We know this because there is a masculine article of o, and they end in os, as, is, es, us. So wherever you see these endings, more than likely they are going to be a masculine noun. Feminine nouns are much easier to recognize and remember, given that we have I and a. These are our two feminine endings, I poli, I arreglada. So we have the feminine article of I with using the ita, and then we have the ita ending and the alpha. Neuter nouns have the article of do, and they end in o using the omicron, iota, I, and ma. So do vivlio, do mulevi, do mathema. Now, this looks easy, but if you remember the sounds of I gori and I arelada, they both sound like I and a, much like the neuter endings. But what we need to look at is how they are spelled. If we are looking at the iota, it's neuter, and ita will be feminine. And we need to look at the last two letters of a neuter noun. So look at ma, do forma, do mathema. Now let's do some revision. We know that masculine articles have an o article, and they end in us, as, is, es, and us. So I want you to repeat after me. O philos, o Elinas, o fititis, o cafés, o papus. So just remember those endings, and then we'll move down to the feminine article of I and the noun of I gori, I arelava. And finally we'll move down to the neuter nouns, do aeroplano, do spiti, do problema. And just remember those two tricky ones at the end of I and ma, because we don't want to confuse them with the ita and the alpha. So we've got the yota and the ma. I have faith that you know and understand this tricky element of Greek grammar. So what I would like you to do is work with a partner and see if you can tell what gender the words are below and what article they need. So garekla. What gender is garekla? Look back if you need and look for the alpha ending. If you have said I garekla for a feminine noun, you are correct. Well done. Now, I want you to work individually and draw up a table in your book, much like what we have here below, and you are going to write the appropriate word in the appropriate column. So, Milo. What column would Milo go to? Would it be masculine, feminine, or neuter? That's right, it would be neuter, Milo. But what article do we need? Do Milo. Well done. This is where things get even trickier because while Greek nouns have singular and plural form, much like English, in English we can simply put an S at the end of most words to make it a plural. If I want to use the word chair, one chair, two chairs, one table, two tables. It's simple, but in Greek it actually is quite tricky. So we'll look at the articles first. The o becomes an I, the ita becomes an I, but be careful of this spelling, it's omicron iota, and then the do becomes da. Now we need to look at the endings of these masculine nouns. So os, if we have the word orgosmos, we'll change it for the plural to I gosmi. But such as if I had the word or skufos, what would the plural be? I skufi. Or pelatis would change to I pelates. Or babas changes to I babades. Or cafés, I cafedes. And or papus, I papudes. Now we're going to look at a table later on to help you, this make a little bit more sense. Feminine plurals can be a little bit tricky as well. We have ipoli, which is a bit of an anomaly, and ipoli would change to ipolis with epsilon iota sigma, but this is quite rare. What I really want you to focus on is this second one, ifoni, which changes to ifones. So the majority of words that end in an ita will end in an s, epsilon sigma. I arelada changes to I arelades, much like imama changes to imamades. Now, neuter nouns are a little bit easier. So we have dovivlio changes to davivlia, domolivit to damolivia, meaning we just put an alpha there instead. So it's a little bit easier to remember. Where it does get tricky though is domathima, words that end in ma, we add a da at the end, so damathimata. Working with your partner once more, I want you to try to change the nouns below to plural. And it's totally okay if you find this tricky or difficult, and it's okay if you make a mistake. We'll just work through it because this is really hard. And now I would like you to write these words, but in the plural. So in your book, can you please write the singular and then the plural form? And once again, if you make a mistake, let's just learn from these mistakes because this is a really tricky concept. This table here will be one of the greatest helpers you will have in our Greek class. So it's best if you copy it down and make sure you don't make any mistakes when you copy this down because this is going to come in handy throughout your years of studying Greek. you've done a fantastic job getting this far, so you should be proud of yourself, and I hope you've learned a little bit. I don't expect you to be a professional at nouns and changing them from singular to plural at this stage. That comes later on. But what I would like you to do is answer the following questions in English, and this will act like a little bit of a revision, but you will need to do your own revision at home just to make sure that this information sticks. And we will be doing this over and over again because repetition will help us learn. So the questions are, what are the 3 genders of Greek nouns? And we should know that. What are the articles for singular and plural nouns? How can I tell what gender a noun is? What endings do masculine nouns have? What endings do feminine nouns have? And what endings do neuter nouns have? Then I want you to answer, what rules do I need to remember when changing a noun from singular to plural? Now, these don't need to be rules that I have explicitly said in this PowerPoint, but perhaps it's things that you think will come in handy for you to remember. Then I want you to write 3 rules you need to remember about Greek nouns in general. And finally, what strategy can you use to remember the gender of nouns? Hopefully this has helped you and will help you later on as well. If you've got any questions, always feel free to ask me, flick me an email, or touch base with me another way. Good luck, guys.